Welcome to the Doomsday News Network. October 1962. The United States and Russia are on the brink of nuclear war. President Kennedy addresses a concerned nation.
Good evening, my fellow citizens. This government, as promised, has maintained the closest surveillance of the Soviet military buildup on the island of Cuba. The purpose of these bases can be none other than to provide a nuclear strike capability against the Western Hemisphere. Upon receiving the first preliminary hard information of this nature, last Tuesday morning at 9 a.m., I directed that our surveillance be stepped up. And having now confirmed and completed our evaluation of the evidence and our decision on a course of action, this government feels obliged to report this new crisis to you in fullest detail.
When we were 2 or 3 days from Cuba, we noticed the American reconnaissance aircraft above us.
What would come to be known as the Cuban Missile Crisis would take the world to the doorstep of destruction. A nuclear standoff between Russia and the United States is in full swing, and Americans around the country are preparing for the Cold War to get hot. In schools around the nation, children are learning how to duck and cover to survive a nuclear blast.
A turtle by the name of Bert, and Bert the turtle was very alert. When danger threatened him, he never got hurt. He knew just what to do. He ducked and cover, ducked and cover.
He did what we all must learn to do.
You and you
And you
and you duck and cover.
Be sure and remember what Bert the Turtle just did, friends, because every one of us must remember to do the same thing. That's what this film is all about. Duck and cover. We all know the atomic bomb is very dangerous. Since it may be used against us, we must get ready for it, just as we are ready for many other dangers that are around us all the time.
A fallout shelter you can build yourself is open for public inspection in Thomasville, Georgia.
All around the country, Americans are preparing for the worst-case scenario. They build shelters in their backyards and local communities and stock them with supplies and medical aid.
A civil defense pamphlet, The Family Fallout Shelter, contains plans and construction details for this and other types of shelters. An easily operated air blower adds comfort. To be sure the vents and traps are working properly, there's a Geiger counter to check radioactivity. A second model in Wheaton, Maryland is designed for the basement of a house. Both were built by the government as part of a plan to build 100 family shelters in communities across the country for test and demonstration purposes. It's a program aimed at your safety.
The United States government prepares for nuclear conflict with Russia, developing plans for continuity of government and survival of the nation. Multiple underground facilities are built around the country in an effort to protect the government against a nuclear attack. America is preparing for nuclear war. Thanks to the efforts of John F. Kennedy and Nikita Khrushchev, de-escalation was achieved and cooler heads prevailed, resulting in both sides standing down and avoiding nuclear war. November 1989. the Soviet Union collapses, and the Cold War ends.
From ABC, this is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings. Reporting tonight from Berlin.
From the Berlin Wall specifically, take a look at them. They've been there since last night. They are here in the thousands. They are here in the tens of thousands. Occasionally they shout, Die Mauer muss weg, the wall must go. Thousands and thousands of West Germans come to make the point that the wall has suddenly become irrelevant.
It has been an astonishing day. Hour after hour, all through today, thousands and thousands of West Germans have come to the wall to see for themselves, to climb up on this hideous structure, to finally look down at what has been no man's land for so long.
Repeating once again our top story, Soviet President Mikhail Gorbachev has been removed from power, and there are tanks now in the streets of Moscow. Vice President Gennady Yanayev says he has taken over as acting president as the head of state of a special state committee. You're watching live pictures from Moscow this morning.
February 2022. Russia invades Ukraine.
It was unprovoked, but this is what Russian President Vladimir Putin unleashed on Ukraine. As the sun came up this morning, a missile striking an industrial park in western Ukraine. A helicopter assault on an airport outside of Kiev. Close, intense fighting. And there are civilian casualties. Local officials say this apartment building was struck in eastern Ukraine. Heartbreaking images of people bloodied, staggering out of their homes.
In an unprovoked attack, more than 200,000 Russians crossed the Ukrainian border and headed toward Kiev, the capital of Ukraine, bringing with them death and destruction.
This radar station took a direct hit. Russia is picking off Ukraine's military facilities one after another. But Ukrainian troops are fighting back, and Russia is also suffering losses here.
Ukraine says it's destroyed some Russian tanks using American-supplied missiles, that this is a damaged Russian helicopter, and that it has captured some Russian soldiers. On day one, the army has been holding strong, but they're being pushed to the limit by Russia's full-scale invasion with attacks across Ukraine, which is the size of Texas, from areas near those pro-Russian enclaves in the east to the capital Kiev in the west.
October 2022, 60 years after the Cuban Missile Crisis. Russia invaded Ukraine and has been fighting for 8 long months, suffering massive casualties and equipment losses. Destruction of the Russian army comes at the hands of weapons provided by the United States and the West. NATO countries are supplying advanced weapons, training, and intelligence to support Ukraine. And the Ukrainians have shown their willingness to fight and displayed competence on the battlefield. But Russia will not back down and ramps up attacks on Ukraine's infrastructure. With Russian losses reported to be climbing over 60,000, Putin is backed into a corner and can no longer hide the seriousness of the situation to his people. Faced with this new information, Russian state media calls for using tactical nuclear weapons on the battlefield and high-yield nukes against NATO.
Один Сармат и все, были британские острова, нет британских.
Но вы же серьезные люди.
Не, а вот я и серьезно и говорю. Ну, слушайте, они нас обвиняют в государстве
Британия тоже располагает ядерным вооружением, Алексей Алексеевич. В этой войне не выживет никто. Когда вы говорите «удар Сармата», вы понимаете, что никого не будет. Никого на планете.
Ну, никого, никогда не говорим
сначала.
Никогда. Да, никогда не говорим никогда. Но если уж мы говорим о таких вооружениях, то есть вопрос в том, что ее еще нужно избить, попытаться. Это не сбиваемая ракета. То, что у них, он говорит, у нас это ограничено, у нас есть чем сбивать. Посмотрим.
Нет еще сарматов в Калининграде. Посчитали, что от Калининграда до Берлина 106 секунд, от Калининграда до Парижа 200 секунд. Вас интересует Лондон 202 секунд.
Вот, я про это. Поэтому им эту картинку надо тоже показывать. Знаете, ребят, вот смотрите, ну хорошо, вы придете. Вот вам картинка. Считайте посекундно. Что ты успеешь? Ага, куда? Да, все, здравствуйте, пролетело. Ну-ка, а так надо? Ну пускай думает. Секундомер ему дать, надо, 200 секунд отсчитать. Да, вот так надо с ними. По-другому никак. Они не понимают.
Tensions between NATO and Russia are rising quickly as the West continues to supply Ukraine with the weapons and aid needed to wage war against Russia while defending their homeland.
Unconfirmed reports that Russia is possibly moving military equipment closer to Finland.
The United States is the largest supplier of aid and weapons to Ukraine, sending billions of dollars every month. The use of Western weapons has caused Russia to suffer catastrophic losses at the hands of Ukrainian soldiers.
This is how Ukraine's army is halting Russia's advance, using anti-aircraft weapons like the US-made Stinger against low-flying helicopters. Now, answering Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's plea, the US says longer-range anti-aircraft missiles are arriving in Ukraine, including the powerful S-300. After Zelensky's impassioned speech to Congress, President Biden announced a massive new security assistance package worth $800 million, including drones, anti-tank weapons, and 20 million rounds of ammunition.
It includes 800 anti-aircraft systems to make sure the Ukrainian military can continue to stop the planes and helicopters that have been attacking their people and to defend their Ukrainian airspace.
Despite being drastically outgunned, Ukraine's forces have been putting up a tough fight. The country's ground troops, led by Colonel General Alexander Syrskyi, a veteran of Ukraine's defense of the Donbas region. Meanwhile, the chief commander of the armed forces, General Valery Zaluzhny, who's widely credited with reforming Ukraine's military, vows to fight the Russians to the last drop of blood.
Faced with defeat, Russia mobilizes their population to resupply troop levels in an attempt to hold ground in Ukraine.
More than 1,000 protesters have been arrested in cities across Russia, according to a human rights organization, after President Putin announced that hundreds of thousands of military reservists could be called up to fight in Ukraine.
To defend our motherland, its sovereignty and territorial integrity, for the security of our people, and on the liberated territories, it is necessary to support the proposal of the Defense Ministry and Chief of General Staff to announce a partial mobilization of military reserve.
Russia continues to be faced with demoralizing losses in Ukraine and struggles to wage war. Unable to supply newly untrained troops with the tools for combat, the deployment of nuclear weapons on the battlefield becomes more likely.
Our country, too, has different weapons of destruction. In some cases, they are more modern than those of NATO. If the territorial integrity of our country is threatened, then to defend Russia and our people, we shall, of course, use all means at our disposal. I am not bluffing.
One of Russia's main sources of capital supplying the war effort is their natural gas sales to Europe. Recently, their main pipeline to Europe was blown up in an act of sabotage. No one has claimed responsibility for the pipeline's destruction.
And thank you, Chancellor Scholz. Mr. President, I have wanted to ask you about this Nord Stream project that you've long opposed. You didn't mention it just now by name, nor did Chancellor Scholz. Did you receive assurances from Chancellor Scholz today that Germany will in fact pull the plug on this project if Russia invades Ukraine? And did you discuss what the definition of invasion could be?
If Germany, if Russia invades, that means tanks or troops crossing the border of Ukraine again. Then there will be no longer a Nord Stream 2. We will bring an end to it. There will be no longer a Nord Stream 2. We will bring an end to it.
How will you do that exactly? since the project and control of the project is within Germany's control?
We will, I promise you we'll be able to do it. I promise you we'll be able to do it.
After destruction of the pipeline, Putin responds.
О возможности и допустимости применения против России оружия
массового поражения. Мало санкций. Они
Ядерного
перешли к диверсиям. Невероятно, но
Тем,
факт.
кто позволяет
Организовав
себе такие заявления.
взрывы на международных газовых магистралях
что
Северного
наша
потока,
страна
которые
также
проходят по дну
располагает
Балтийского моря,
различными средствами
фактически приступили к
по
уничтожению
отдельным
общеевропейской
компаниям, тем более
энергетической
современным,
инфраструктуры.
чем у стран НАТО.
Всем же
При
очевидно,
угрозе
кому это выгодно.
территориальной целостности
Кому выгодно,
нашей
тот и
страны.
сделал, конечно.
Для защиты России и нашего народа мы, безусловно, используем все имеющиеся в нашем распоряжении средства. Это не бред.
Russian men from all over the country flee to the border to avoid conscription. Refusal to fight results in over 10 years in prison.
At borders in Russia's east, south and west, thousands of Russian men are trying to escape conscription. Lines of cars stretched several kilometers at the Zemolasi crossing into Georgia Thursday. There were similar scenes at the Kazakhstan and Mongolian borders. Traffic has more than doubled on Russia's frontier with Finland. Among those fleeing was 34-year-old Nikita, who did not want to give his full name.
Yes, I'm afraid.
Why are you afraid?
Because it's very big mistake for Russia, for Europe, and of course for Ukraine citizens.
September 21st, 2022, country's President Vladimir Putin just announced mobilization of Russia's young men. This day in the history of Russia can be described as perfect shitstorm. Lots of people are dismayed. Lots of mothers and fathers worrying sick about their children. Lots of people trying to get out of Russia as soon as they can. The prices for plane tickets have gone up tenfold just in one day. The slew of information from all kinds of resources, people, newspapers, TV channels, internet. The information is very chaotic and contradictory. None understands what the future will bring us. My friends, this house is on fire.
What is up, everybody, and welcome to my channel once again. And today is not one of the best days that I'm having right now. I'm actually gonna drive down to my friend's house where my ladder is actually at, and I'm gonna try to quickly get it sold to somebody, so you know I'd have some money to kind of get my ass out of here before they start taking every single guy in, you know. So you probably know about the whole mobilization situation, which really sucks. It kind of ruined every single plan that I had, and it's time to flip and escape this place, get my ass out of here, and then after that get my girlfriend and the cats.
In spite of his dire situation, Vladimir Putin continues to threaten the West, and NATO refuses to back down.
Well, the Biden administration preparing to send another $600 million military package to Ukraine. That is according to U.S. officials who spoke with Reuters. The announcement comes as Germany is sending more weapons to Ukraine, including 2 multiple launch rocket systems, 200 missiles, and 50 armored personnel carriers.
American cities are preparing again for nuclear war.
So there's been a nuclear attack. Don't ask me how or why, just know that the big one has hit, okay? So what do? There are 3 important steps that I want you to remember. Step 1, get inside fast. You, your friends, your family, get inside. And no, staying in the car is not an option. You need to get into a building and move away from the windows.
President of the United States says the quiet part out loud.
We begin tonight with those words from President Biden behind closed doors, but they made immediate news. The president warning the risk of nuclear Armageddon has not been this high since the Cuban Missile Crisis, amid the threats from Vladimir Putin. The president saying Putin is not joking. As the Russians face serious setbacks in Ukraine, President Biden saying the threat of the use of nuclear weapons has not been this high since Kennedy and Cuba.
60 years removed from the Cuban Missile Crisis, the world finds itself again in nuclear peril. The question is, can we survive this time? Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe to the Doomsday News Network channel. Stay informed, get prepared, and survive what's coming.